what do you think the future holds?
Well, and this is for better or worse, prices are going to keep going up. That's not to say they won't correct, they won't plateau, they won't any number of things, but we will be beating appreciation in other markets. And the reason for that is the geographical scarcity of land we have, particularly in Pinellas County. But even now, the whole Tampa Bay area, you can buy new construction in Wesley Chapel and Palmetto and Brandon, and they can all be great places to live. But once you're out that far, you're not really living at the beach anymore.
Hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome to Tampa Bay Unlocked, the podcast where we dive into the dynamic world of real estate and business in the vibrant Tampa Bay area. Join us as we sit down with top agents and industry leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories of success. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, our interviews will unlock the secrets to thriving in one of Florida's hottest markets. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and motivated by the experts shaping the future of Tampa Bay. Tune in and let's unlock the wisdom from our next guest. I have Steven Herzfeld, the Director of Commercial and Leasing for the Jac Smith Group here at Keller Williams St. Pete. Steven, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. Very much appreciate the opportunity, and I think this will be a lot of fun today.
It's going to be a lot of fun, dude, because you got that rockin' mustache, right? For anyone who's not watching, Steven rolls around town. He's unforgettable because of his handlebar mustache that is just too perfect.
It's part of the brand, no doubt.
It's definitely part of the brand.
It's
and there's no way we are not going to talk about that.
Of course.
Because it is your icebreaker.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come up more than once even.
Well, before we even dive into it, I mean, you always got the coolest shirts and you rock the handlebar mustache, but how long have you had the mustache?
In December, it's going to be 7 years of this mustache.
That is a piece of you.
Yeah. And I can't get rid of it now. Trust me, I have like these inspirations sometimes of like, oh, what if it was just gone? I don't know what I'd do. It wouldn't be myself anymore.
Well, you know, they say that after 7 years of a relationship that you're your best friends for life.
Okay.
So I think you're best friends for life.
It's coming up soon here on that anniversary. Yeah, I was in New Orleans and we were visiting some friends that used to be roommates of ours. And when we were roommates, I used to have a mustache for a little while there too. So I just brought it back for the trip. Everybody got a kick out of it.
And you've had it ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's great, man. There's no way people can forget you. And even if they're like, oh, that guy with the mustache, like either way, you're so memorable.
It's an icebreaker too. You can go up, anyone in the room, they can talk to them. They want to come talk to me, take pictures. It's hilarious.
It is funny. It's good. It's good. It's good. So you're in commercial real estate here with Jac Smith Group at KW St. Pete. Why don't we just do a little trip down memory lane of how you ended up here?
Yeah.
Wherever you want to start to where you think is most relevant, but let's keep it to like a, 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minute backstory.
Yeah. So getting into real estate altogether, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see how it goes. So I would say it probably starts because I went to school for architecture. And so that's some of that just foundational baseline, knowing about buildings, knowing about how things are made, knowing about cities. We'll probably get into that more. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a passion of mine, how the places we experience are built and how we interact with them. So early on, I had an interest in buildings. I've always had an interest in sort of infrastructure, and that interest in infrastructure and cities is part of what drove me more towards doing commercial. I've owned a few businesses in the past, and that gives me a little bit of background on, what the mind of a business person might be when they're looking at a property, when they're concerned that they're leaving their, day job, things like that. So and I guess that's a bit of a start, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So you go to school for architecture. You find this interest in design. You have some other businesses, but I mean, you've been in the business now for how long?
About 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 years. So what was the moment we talked about creativity earlier? What was the spark, idea, thought where you were like, okay, I'm going to go take my real estate exam?
I had two people. So before COVID, I was working in bicycle and transportation and housing advocacy and policy type of work. And that sort of dried up, sort of just couldn't keep it sustained through COVID. And so I was a little bit lost. I've tried my hand at a number of different things. Always been a jack of all trades type of person, which does dovetail into real estate, of course, quite a bit. But sometime in fall 2020, 2 agents separately, both of whom at the time were here at KW. So that was Jenna Malawani and then Jake Woolman. Both of them, had been spending some time with them as friends and sort of just community people, people about town. And they both said it would be something I'd be great at, said they'd be interested in working with me. Both of them being commercial agents, that was another thing that pushed me that direction.
So let's talk about commercial, because it's a different animal, right? People think real estate and they're like, oh, that means I can do all these things. But I'm sure as you have found, there is a specialty in being residential. There is a specialty in being commercial. And so what did you find to be different right off the rip? Because you come into a brokerage and where mostly everyone's residential.
Yeah.
And but you're taking what I would say a harder but maybe a more rewarding path of commercial.
That's kind of been the case, definitely. It's taken this whole time to really build up the steam in my career, and proud of it, so far. But the big difference is a lot of what is so streamlined about doing residential real estate is not there for commercial. That's from training, from the documentation and the regulations. It's a lot more cutting your teeth, learning the hard way type of thing. It's less of a pipeline and a stream that's kind of defined for you already. And of course, I know everybody does, residential their own way, and that's fair. There's a lot of ways to do it. But in commercial, it's a whole nother game as far as sort of the almost creativity behind the deals, the opportunities you have to try different things, to get things done, and different ways of specializing in multifamily, in retail, hospitality, food and beverage, specialty, government, sports arenas, live events.
It opens up a whole world.
Yeah.
That's not, when you're in residential, there's, you have a single family home, you have a condo, a townhome. You might have up to a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex. That's about it.
Mobile homes.
You got a house on the water, a house not on the water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's, I'm sure I'm missing a few, but not as much variety or complexity as commercials. So kudos, because I know it's definitely harder.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so how, if at all, has your architecture background helped? Has it? I don't know.
Yeah, it has, I'd say. I think it would have been just as valuable, if not more, in residential, pointing out certain things about the types of roofs and designs of the windows and things like that are just as useful. I can look at I know if a building is block or wood frame. I know if it's slab construction. I know if it's double paned windows, things like that. And there are plenty of agents with the experience in residential to know those things too, but it was nice to start with that, foundation. In commercial, and because I've taught myself everything in my past jobs. I didn't finish school, didn't finish college. So in those first businesses I had, I was wearing all the hats. One of them was an indoor bicycle racing track and mountain biking trails. So the track is called the Velodrome. And the other one was business doing fabrication with bicycles. So custom carbon fiber bicycle frames and components and things like that. And so I've picked up a lot of sort of industrial knowledge, manufacturing knowledge, things like that. And I definitely impress people when we go into a building and I'm like, oh, look, this is hooked up with pneumatic lines for running air tools and things like that. Or, knowing how to tell the difference between different water lines on a building, different, roof constructions, operating bay doors, things like that.
Right. So where would you say your main focus is now, or passion in the commercial space? As we identified, there's so many arenas.
Yeah.
No way to specialize at them all.
No, you can't. And while I'm continually told to specialize, I have still just been chasing what comes to me a little bit. But retail and medical has had fairly consistent inflow to my pipeline, I would say.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to specialize in either of those, but one thing I'm going to be doing differently than what a lot of commercial realtors do is farming an area geographically. And one thing I'm very passionate about and want to focus on is the Sunrunner corridor. The Sunrunner is the new bus rapid transit system here in St. Petersburg that is basically like a premium bus system from the beaches to downtown. And I stay really connected with what's going on in the city, even at the political level, policy and zoning, things like that. So I'm trying to really show my expertise in the types of changes to zoning that are coming to the city. Along the Sunrunner corridor, for example, we're going to see areas around the stations get upzoned for more density and more intensity of uses. And I think people, once they see it, will really understand it. And I want to work with those people who do understand it or want to understand it. You've got a lot of those stations where the Sunrunner stops, where you get off and it's a couple of gas stations. And that's, there's nothing else really around you. So when we can bring small businesses to those stations and we can bring places where people live, multifamily housing, so apartments, condos, townhouses, as we can bring those closer to the Sunrunner stations, you'll see more people being less dependent on their cars at all income levels, all walks of life.
You think the Sunrunner was a forward-thinking move by the city to what's to come on how it would be utilized?
Yes, it's going to take a few years. It's already been a success. And I know what controversial ideas people have around it.
Yeah.
But its ridership is very high. If you get on any time of day, chances are there's people getting on and off at the same station as you, and there may or may not be seats on it. And it might be standing room only sometimes.
I'm glad you bring that up. I haven't rode it yet.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm down. I know friends that have taken it out to the beach, and they're like, I forgot. Why would I ever drive? The parking out there.
We'll do a KW sunset, on the Sunrunner. Don't have to worry about drinking and driving. Don't have to worry about finding parking or paying for parking as much. Holiday weekends now, it's $50 a day to pay for parking at the beaches in St. Petersburg.
If you can find it.
If you find it.
Yeah.
And an Uber isn't necessarily going to be any better for you.
Yeah. No. This is true. Yeah. That's interesting. So what else? I mean, I love that you bring up zoning, because not that zoning doesn't show up in the residential world, but definitely not as prevalent as it is in commercial.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Because right now, if I'm thinking who's listening to this, Steven, it's probably a lot of residential agents thinking of, is commercial interesting? And I really want to highlight the differences and the complexity of it.
I think that's exactly what people will take away from the conversation today, but also what people will take away when they really compare and contrast the two specialties of residential versus commercial. I can't blow you away with any memorized knowledge of which zone, which zoning district does one thing or another. But effectively, what zoning is it determines what types of uses of businesses or construction are allowed in different parts of the city. And it goes effectively back to the Industrial Revolution, when people didn't want to have a factory, a power plant, a coal mine in their backyard, and it's very much still useful for that type of.
Can you imagine? I just wanted to say.
No, that's
you're just one day there's just a coal factory.
Yeah, junkyard.
Junkyard.
Your neighbor.
And you're not. Yeah, you're like, what? Wait a minute. Yeah. So I don't think zoning is appreciated enough.
It's critical. It is a little underappreciated. It's a little misunderstood. It can get people riled up one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of that boils down to, and a lot of what people who are advocating for maybe I don't know, deregulation's not the word, but reform, zoning reform. And it's not a bipartisan or a partisan issue. It's just people understanding, again, cities and things like that. We haven't changed our zoning regulations in a long time. They've been very static. But if you can imagine, heavy industry is not what it used to be 50 years ago, 100 years ago in the country. People working from home more, things like Airbnbs. There's all kinds of ways that the ways that we use our properties aren't the same as they used to be. And we really could use to shake things up a little bit to get the best out of the valuable land we have in town. And that's everywhere.
What are you doing to stay up to date with things that are happening in the zoning world? Because like right now, if I want to know about zoning, like if I'm Joe Schmo, where do I go? I'm brand new to this. I'm like, oh, zoning. Where can I go to get more information on that?
The first thing you're going to want to do is go to the city's, the city code, on their website, and find the zoning matrix, the zoning use matrix. It's a really clunky PDF. It's very wide. It's very tall. You can't fit it all on one screen. And it has the 50 or so different zones and 100 different types of uses. So it could be everything from like a drug rehab facility to a strip club to a retirement home. They've broken many of those very specific types of uses down separately, which is useful. But it gets complicated. It overall is dry, but if you appreciate how important it is, it's not dry.
And how complicated is it to get zoning updated or changed or, go through that?
It's every bit of bureaucracy you can imagine on the government side of things. As it is now, you can do things outside of what the zoning regulations allow, but you need to get a variance for it, a special permit. So, and you'd be surprised how much things that you see going up that are just normal sometimes fall outside of what the regulations allow and will need a variance for it.
Okay.
So that's both like what you need to do individually to rezone a property or to get a variance, and then to change zones altogether. It takes sometimes things at the state and federal level to change those things.
Wow.
I know in right now, one thing St. Pete is struggling with is at the state level, the cities are told they're not allowed to make any zone more restrictive than it is right now. So let's say you want to change it from CCT1 to CRT1, or one of these acronyms for zoning. And let's say it's all the exact same, except it adds one thing but takes away one other thing. Well, they can't just easily change that zoning without a whole referendum and situation.
What a mess.
So, yeah.
I mean, fun, I'm sure, in some way, but also it's all the hoops that it makes you appreciate when something changes or something new comes into town. You don't know all the back end things that had to take place.
I'm glad to not be working on the policy side of it as much.
Right.
But I stay in touch with the city staff that are in the zoning and historic preservation department, always reading St. Pete Catalyst, St. Pete Rising, keeping my eye on those things, attend public workshops. I don't ever make it over to the Development Review Commission meetings or the city council meetings. It's a few more things than I can have on my plate right now. I do sit on the city's Complete Streets Committee.
What's that?
So that is basically it's a committee within the city that has some city staffers on it, some members from other organizations like PSTA or the county, the fire department, things like that. And it effectively just discusses different ways that we can prioritize different transportation modalities on our road. So we know kind of cars are king in American cities, but that doesn't mean no one wants to walk. And someone's got to be kind of looking out for that. So making sure sidewalks are, the right size when we change a road, bike lanes, bus routes, bus stops and stations, things like that.
I think that's what probably makes, these parts of St. Pete so interesting and appealing is the walkability.
Yeah. When I grew up in the area, and I lived in Colorado for 12 years, and when I moved back, the city was even kind of, its success as a very pedestrianized urban place was winning accolades as, a great pedestrian,
Walkability.
Great walkability.
Great walkability score.
Absolutely. And
What's
the
that
walk
on?
score, the walk score and the bike score. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I look at that when I look at properties.
Yeah.
I look at it for my clients and for my own interests too. So I've got a listing right along the Sunrunner corridor right now. And I've got that in the description. Yeah. I've been adding the bus routes into my property descriptions because it's going to be more, it may not be important for the property owner or the business owner, but it could be important to his clients. Mm-hmm. It could be important to his employees. Mm-hmm. If your dishwasher needs to ride his bike to work, or really anyone, that's not a dig at any one part of the system, mm-hmm. But you don't want to be just on a 6-lane road with no way for them to get there.
No way. I love the Pinellas Trail and everything that we got there for bikeability.
That's right.
Over walkability is also important. So, Steven, if you were to do, so you're listening to this right now and you're like, man, I'm thinking about commercial. I don't even know where to start. And I don't even know if you have a great answer for this, but if you were to start over, what would you do differently, if anything?
You're going to be networking with different people in commercial real estate. Everyone needs a residential realtor, or all walks of life, all kinds of people. But you want to focus in on not just investors, but business owners with your networking. So I stay really heavily involved in the Chamber of Commerce, try and do some networking groups and events, because you're basically surrounded by people who, let's say, even if they aren't looking for real estate for themselves, they are always networking with business owners. So some of these groups I'm in, I do see a lot of the same people over and over, but that means that I come top of mind when they hear someone needs a realtor.
That's a great way to look at it. So I'm going to rephrase the question again just to see. So starting over, would you put more emphasis on networking with business owners, or were you saying that's what you did to start?
I would put more emphasis on it than when I started.
Okay, got it.
I didn't get involved in the Chamber of Commerce until about maybe 14 months ago, 12 months ago. And it's been a great source of introductions and leads. Haven't closed any deals with anyone directly within the chamber, but always making meeting great new people through it, and get my name out there. People know who I am within the
business.
Groups I'm in.
The business road is long.
It is.
You could be making relationships now that maybe aren't utilized for another 10 years.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Particularly, I'm in my 30s, so not everyone I know is going to be investing in commercial real estate at their age, or even opening a business. Mm-hmm. They're still cutting their teeth, as servers and bartenders in a restaurant before they open their own place. They're still, cutting their teeth working at live events before they own a nightclub or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I see it.
Being a car salesman before you own a car dealership.
Right. Yeah, it's just getting to the guy. In your 30s, and I do, not to shift gears, but I want to say congrats, because you also are a new dad.
Yep.
How?
Conrad turns, 4 months to 2 days from now.
Well, what a lucky fella. You and him and your wife. How has that, I don't think, just to shift gears out of that, like now becoming a dad, how has that shifted? And being anyone in real estate, a self-starter.
Yeah.
How has that impacted you, if any?
We're very fortunate in that our baby sleeps great. He sleeps overnight great, but he's not napping enough for us to get like that downtime during the day to get our chores done. So we're falling behind at home on chores, understandably, like just about anyone would. We're doing okay on sleep, but the pressure and the stress of just not feeling like you're doing your best in, your personal life, it makes me a little more scattered.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's been harder to concentrate, harder to think further ahead. Basically, I'm always right now I'm just only thinking a few days ahead instead of weeks or months ahead.
Sounds like you're still in survival mode.
It is.
With the
Yeah. I think that's all I
camaraderie.
can say about it.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know if you felt like an inner shift inside of you or anything like that. And I don't know because I
Yeah.
don't have children, so I always feel like, am I going to be in a different frame of mind?
You are, and you will be. That's definitely the case. I don't default to like sentimentality. It's just not my nature or personality, but that doesn't mean it's not in there. I love our baby. I love my wife, and we're having a good time on the adventure. But I am still doing this for myself. And I come from, a few years of not the best mental health. And so I'm still doing a lot of this just for myself because I need to prove it to myself. I need to, be on firm ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's powerful. I think there's a fire inside of anyone who has that kind of thought, and you need that fire to survive in this business, residential or commercial. So kudos to you for recognizing that. What do you think, from a commercial standpoint and view, as we go back and put a little focus on St. Pete and all the construction, development, new businesses that are coming here, what do you think the future holds?
Well, and this is for better or worse, prices are going to keep going up. That's not to say they won't correct, they won't plateau, they won't any number of things, but we will be beating appreciation in other markets. And the reason for that is the geographical scarcity of land we have, particularly in Pinellas County. But even now, the whole Tampa Bay area, you can buy new construction in Wesley Chapel and Palmetto and Brandon, and they can all be great places to live. But once you're out that far, you're not really living at the beach anymore. Like 20, 30 years ago, people moving to the area would have appreciated and would have wanted to gain. You're not far from the beach. It can be part of your lifestyle, but you're not going to be doing sunset strolls every day if you live in Wesley Chapel.
No, definitely not.
So the scarcity of land for new development is going to continue to make people's properties worth more and more. That's not explicitly a good thing. There's people who hurt from that. And it's something we do need to keep our eye out on because nationwide we're having an affordability crisis with housing, and places like this it's going to hurt more.
This is not the place to come for an affordable home.
Not right now. Yeah, it was in the past.
But it is, I mean, what do we know about real estate? Location, location, location. Three
Yep.
times, right?
Yep.
And where else can you, I personally don't know, and maybe there are places where you can live in a place with so much new economic development in terms of newness coming, so many small business owners, access to the beach, access to a bay, access to an international airport.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in a nice little Goldilocks sweet spot.
A lot of what we're experiencing has been, for lack of a better word, planned for decades. I've always found that our county and city government are very effective. They do run things well here relative to other places. And we have great regional cooperation. Under our previous mayor, and so Mayor Kreisman and Mayor Buckhorn in Tampa, that was one of the cornerstones of their tenures was if Tampa thrives, we thrive. If we thrive, Tampa thrives. We need to share our resources a little bit. So they've got the convention center, the airport, Busch Gardens, the hockey team. We've got baseball, we've got the beaches, we've got the quirky art scene, things like that. And that is indispensable.
I love that you made those connections and how the Tampa and St. Pete meld and thrive off of each other. That's super important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not competition.
No, it's not. Even though it feels like it is sometimes.
It's fun, I hate
that bridge.
Yeah, I definitely try to avoid the drive as much as I can, but there's plenty of reason to go to Tampa.
There is. There's plenty of reason to come to St. Pete.
And everyone seems to appreciate that. I mean, we all have our home teams, St. Pete and Tampa, figuratively speaking, but for the right event, for the right restaurant, anything like that, it's still our backyard.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. To go deeper into your little background a little bit, you said prior to us starting that you had some time on a microphone.
Yeah.
emceeing bike races?
Yeah, that's right. So part of what I was doing at Boulder Indoor Cycling, which was the name of the indoor velodrome.
In Colorado.
Yep, that's Boulder, Colorado. We would put on races, and of course we would have amateur races, but then we would have monthly, or for fundraisers or special events, we would have these almost exhibition races where we would get retired professionals and the coaches from our classes and things like that, and put on races that were exciting to watch, even if the racers weren't necessarily going totally cutthroat on each other. And so we would pack the house with sometimes 500 and 600 people in the, on the mezzanine and around the railing of the velodrome. And so I'd be drinking beer and announcing bike races. And it was very stressful because I'd be keeping scores of the races and ringing the lap bell for the sprints and the ends of the races, counting laps for the racers also while announcing them. So that was a lot of fun, and I've announced some road racing as well, and even my voice, not my face, but my voice was on TV announcing a race one time too.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So time behind the mic.
A little bit.
Not unfamiliar with this territory.
And a few product videos for a job I've had in the past. Some, just spotlights, highlights.
Yeah. So commercial, I mean, is this it for you? Do you think commercial is the career?
Well, I just did close a residential deal recently. Some friends of friends moving from Colorado. It was very rewarding. Really enjoyed it. There are some elements of residential that, like I mentioned, are a little more streamlined. Your contracts look a lot more similar than different. Your all the regulatory paperwork, the lead-based paint disclosures and things like that, add some work, but also streamline the work in some way. Funny enough, just yesterday, we signed a listing agreement for 12 new townhouses. So I'm working with a developer for a new townhouse development. So now you're talking, what is that, commercial or residential? It is really more residential, but working directly with a developer will open up opportunities to help them with acquisitions for land in the future, or for working with investors who might be buying these properties. So I continue to commit to commercial real estate. It's where I want to be. I think it's a little bit less evening and weekend work, even if it's very, stressful and can be just as long of hours. And on the Jac Smith Group, we do commit to doing things like open houses and things like that. So I have done residential open houses, sometimes multiple a week, the whole time that I've been on the team for the most part. But here's the thing about that, and just one thing for realtors to know about open houses. That's where my lead on this 12 townhouse development came from. A lender came in, was just shaking hands at open houses, and he was the introduction to the developer. So anything can fall into your plate on an open house.
You never know where it's going to come from.
You don't.
I think that's one of the most fun parts about this whole thing, is the minute you think you have nothing going on, poof, things just show up.
Yeah.
I mean, same kind of thing. Yesterday, I bumped into $7 million worth of business in one day.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen I can go weeks without that happening.
It does. I had 4 closings this month, and my pipeline, besides this development, which is a little ways down the road, it looks kind of dry. But then I look at it and I'm like, no, there's still leads I'm following up with. There's just nothing under contract right now. And you got to keep working on them, keep showing properties, keep sending listings, things like that. You can't let off the gas.
Here, I just thought of a good thing we could chat about. What's difference in terms of, tools, right? Tools in commercial.
Yeah.
Are way different than residential. Talk about that a little bit. What's necessary? What's needed? I mean, it's a whole different world. There's not a Zillow. I mean, there kind of is LoopNet, but
there kind of is and kind of isn't.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
That is one of probably many commercial realtors share with me, and any residential realtor who's tried commercial from the sidelines a little bit, a frustration of theirs. CoStar is a company you probably haven't heard of, but they own LoopNet. They also own Homes.com, 10X, which is property auctions, Land.com.
Apartments.com.
I think there's got to be another
There
one
is.
or two.
There's
Even
a lot. They're a huge conglomerate.
City Feet, maybe, something like that. And so CoStar is not inexpensive. And you sign up for a year at a time. And you sign up through your brokerage. You don't just call them on the phone and say, hey, I need an account. So there's some built-in kind of nonsense to it. And that is where all the commercial listings are. Not all of them. A lot of deals get done off market. So you got to know other brokers, or you're just trying to double side every deal you can. And then you have some stuff on LoopNet, but a lot of it doesn't make it to LoopNet.
Why is that? Why has the industry as a whole decided that we're going to put listings in the most expensive place possible? Well, I guess LoopNet is connected to CoStar, so you have to get it there.
It is. You have to have a CoStar account to post your listings on LoopNet.
Right. Oh, man. Tough.
And it's like an upgrade to
Right.
put them on LoopNet.
Yeah. So why? I mean, that's just crazy. So and a lot of things happen off market. So this networking that we talked about earlier is ever more important, not only with business owners but with other commercial brokers.
Other brokers, haves and needs.
Because it goes back
meetings.
to a time before Zillow, or as we know, like on the residential side, an internet-based MLS where you rolled around with a book, and you had to collect that book from different brokerages and know what listings they had.
I don't know what that world would be like. That would be nuts.
That would be nuts. But it's almost like that, it sounds like, in commercial.
It is a little bit. You are constantly pulling over at the side of the road to take pictures of a for rent sign and handwritten signs. They're like FSBOs for residential. Mm-hmm. Why it's like that? I want to say, and I'm not the one in charge of these things, I want to say that for the brokers who are in commercial real estate, it kind of keeps the riffraff out a little bit. You're working with other professional commercial realtors
because they're paying for this
when they're on CoStar. I don't know what else to say about it besides that. I think that's, it sounds a little ugly sometimes, but it has its benefits, I think.
I mean, it's a pay-to-play kind of thing, and I compare it, and this is to, if you're in the finance industry at a high level, you got to pay for the Bloomberg terminal, which is outrageous, like $25,000 a year type of deal, right? But you got instant access to the most high-quality news that's happening, and everything is just...
It's there.
It's there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of, I'm glad I thought to bring this up, because I think that's a big differentiating factor, is that even if you're a residential agent, you're like, oh, I want to get into commercial, you don't have access to the tools.
You don't have the deals. Yeah, you can't see the deals. And generally, a lot of commercial realtors want to keep some of their own data private. The notes they keep on different properties that they see, knowing when the leases that you sign for people, or that you make the deals happen, when that lease ends, which means when to call the tenant and the landlord and say, hey, you've got a renewal coming up, or we got to find a new place or a new tenant for you. And so to a commercial realtor with the experience and the, their web out there, that's valuable. It makes it that much harder to get started doing it, though.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. And so how important to you, I mean, I'm just thinking like starting, and I have some ideas of what things that we're going to do in-house to make commercial even more seamless. But, you know, if you're a new agent came to you tomorrow, Steven, and said, I want to get into commercial real estate, what would you tell them?
If they were totally new, I would not
green
start
as green could be.
I wouldn't start in commercial, and I did, but it was painful. I mean, maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but it didn't.
Well, let's just set the standard as to why. What's the average length of time for a commercial deal to close?
I mean, let's say like the shortest ones would be 4 to 5 months, minus a few cases. I did a lease this month in 3 days.
Right.
Listed a property, drove out there a few times to show it, and signed it. Mm-hmm. But my take home on that was about $500.
Right.
So,
but anything of significance, you're looking at 90 to 120 days minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum.
I just finished a deal with a client I started with in August last year. It's now the end of July.
Right, so 11 months.
We saw this property in October. We saw it again in March or February maybe, and we've been in the deal since then.
Right. So when you say painful, it's having other means and support to carry you through a long startup period.
Yeah, and the self-esteem too.
Yeah. That I mean, it's
which I only mention knowing that it's something I had struggled with early in the process too. Like I said, I was just not feeling my best going into this and in the first few years. And
well, I can only imagine you'd go that long without closing the deal.
Right.
You know, you're putting in all this work day in and day out, and the reward is so far. I mean, there's something to be said about delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And that's on the extreme end, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, and because when you do have something going on, you do get a little more of a, I like to call it a swagger, right?
Yes.
You have a little more swagger to your walk and your confidence in the way you know, when you don't need it.
It benefits in the negotiations.
Yeah,
it does.
When you have some swagger.
Exactly.
Yes.
It feels good to be riding high.
Yes,
for sure. It makes a difference in your performance.
For sure. So, what's the future hold for you? If you had a crystal ball, where are you at 3 years from now?
I love the Jac Smith Group. I'm going to stay with us, for the foreseeable future. I see us growing a larger commercial team department. I don't know if that looks like other agents that I'm working, at a parallel level with, or people working under me, whether that's doing more assistant roles or more of a mentoring type of situation. I see myself working more on deals closer to home, because right now I'm driving out to Riverview and Wesley Chapel all the time for deals, and the North Tampa, Largo. So I'd love to be working just in St. Pete, Gulfport, Pasadena would be fabulous. But there's a lot of tough competition nearby, both including some awesome commercial agents in our office.
Fair. But time, right? We did, the more deals you do, but in this world, it's time is on your side.
Yeah.
Right. You need to have time on your side to succeed. Well, Steven, I'm sure we could go on for hours on this.
No doubt.
I could feel it, but for the sake of the listeners, we'll wrap it up here. How can people find you? And let's say that there's someone right now who's like, actually, I need a commercial guy. Where can they find you?
Of course, the Jac Smith Group and myself have pages on Instagram and Facebook. They can reach me by call or text on my phone number. I'm sure that'll maybe be in the comments or a link, but if not, it's 727-244-0442. You can reach me by email, of course, as well. So first and last name, Steven Herzfeld at kwcommercial.com.
You just made me realize I said it wrong. I said Herzfeld.
Oh,
Herzfeld, right?
No I's, no T's, no S's. H-E-R-Z.
Steven Herzfeld, everyone. Don't mess his name up. My gosh, what a guy. If people are still with us, and they are, right? Because you got fans. What should they comment below? One word.
That's right. I thought of something. Comment commercial.
Comment commercial. For those that are here and you're interested, what camera am I on? I won this one. Comment commercial below and let us know that you're still listening to all the awesome things that Steven has to say about commercial and that world. And if you're interested in it, reach out to him. I mean, this guy has gone through it. He's showed the perseverance of what it takes to make it to the other side. And so the great wisdom can be learned there. Steven, appreciate you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for being here. And don't forget to like, comment, share with a friend, and do all that fun stuff. Comment commercial below, and we'll see you on the next one.